They believed he could move clouds, grant their wishes, and heal them with his magical powers. But one by one, they began to disappear.
If he want to have a powerful magic, he must kill 70 women.
Dia didudukkan ke dalam lubang dengan posisi duduk, kaki memanjang, baru dia melakukan pencikikan.
Convicted for murdering 42 young women, Indonesia's Ahmad Suradji was one of the most prolific and hideous serial killers of all time.
Dan termasuk di mata ibu aja tuh anak ibu. Sendirian itu. Nah, tolong pun ada orang yang tahu. Kok tega kayak gitu?
Kangen aja sama mama. Gak bisa-bisanya mama saya yang dibunuh.
Situated about 900 miles from Jakarta, on the outskirts of Medan, North Sumatra, Indonesia. It's an eerie little hamlet where sorcerers are revered. April 27th, 1997. A young man walks into a vast, desolate sugarcane field to gather weeds to feed his livestock. Heavy rain the previous day has washed away shallow layers of topsoil. Within 10 yards of walking into the field, the man sights a large mound of dirt that looks unusually out of place. Alarmed, he rushes to inform the village head, Sugito.
Kami gali lah gitu, kami cocok gitu kan, ternyata bau bangke kan saya cium gitulah kayu itu. Pulang saya lapor kepada Kepling saya. Nah, disarankan sama Kepling, suruh ngelapor Koramil. Nah, lapor saya ke Koramil. Kata Koramil, tolong kalian bongkar. Kalau itu mayat, jangan kalian pegang katanya. Jadi kalau kalian hewan, udah kau tinggal terserah.
Sugito gathers a group of villagers to help hasten the digging process. Around 7 p.m., 6 men start to dig up the mound and its surrounding area. Into the night, amidst a billowing crowd of onlookers, the men unearth a rancid-smelling, semi-decomposed body.
Bongkar-bongkar nampak bumbunya, lari, bongkar lagi sampai 3 kali gitu kan. Lari kami, pakai lampu pertoma.
Immediately, the police are alerted. Naked, bloated, and putrefying, the body of a young woman is removed from the muddy grave. Recognized vaguely by onlookers, she is 21-year-old Sri Kamala Dewi. The victim's family is summoned by the police for further identification. It's a mother's worst nightmare.
Entah jam berapa lah waktu itu, udah lupa ya kan. Dijemput sama adik. Jadi udah sampailah ke sana sama si bapak, Pak. Ya aku di sini kata bapak. Bukan Dewi kan Pak? Bukan. Jadi kepala larungnya pun bilang, bukan Bu. Udah yuk jalannya ada lihat katanya kan. Dilihat masih dibuka dari kaki segini, dari bentuk apapun, jenis apapun ya ibu kan tanda. Nggak sempat lagi ngomong Dewi, ibu terus nggak sadar sampai ke rumah, sampai keesokan harinya.
3 days earlier, Dewi had left her home to run a simple errand for the family. She never returned. But after her decomposed body surfaces in the sugarcane fields, a 15-year-old rickshaw puller steps forward with a vital piece of information regarding Dewi's errand.
Mendiang itu bilang pertamanya, antar saya kemana? Nanti kamu tahu, katanya. Dia masih merahasiakan di pertengahan jalan, baru dia bilang mau ke rumah Datuk, sebutan kami di kampung ini. Terus saya tanya, ngapain ke sana, Kak? Udahlah, tosa ditanya aku sana ngapain.
Sri Kamala Dewi had visited Datuk, the much-revered village sorcerer Ahmad Suradji, also known as Dukun AS.
Permintaan untuk dijemput tidak ada. Setelah saya antar, saya pulang. Namun pesan yang terakhir, keberangkatan dia ke rumah Dukun AS itu jangan dibilang siapa-siapa, termasuk orang tuanya.
But when Devi's body turns up in the fields, Andreas tells the story to her family and to the police.
Setelah saya lihat, saya bilang ke orang tuanya, kalau 3 hari yang lalu saya antar Sri Kamala Dewi mendiang ini ke rumah Dukun AS. Setelah itu keterangan saya ditindaklanjuti oleh kepolisian.
The police immediately approach Suradji's house and after conducting an extensive search, find several incriminating items. Among other things, Devi's handbag, her dress, and a charm bracelet. Suradji denies any connection with Devi's murder, but he admits he has already visited the crime scene and even consoled the grieving family. On April 30th, 1997, 3 days after the discovery of Devi's remains, the 45-year-old self-proclaimed sorcerer, Ahmad Suradji, is arrested on charges of abduction and murder of 21-year-old Kamala Devi. But as the police investigation continues, the case takes on a bizarre turn. The evidence collected from his home point to more than one victim. But Suradji is not giving any details, not even about Devi.
Kita periksa. Waktu itu kami periksa begitu-begitu, ternyata dia nggak mengaku. Mana bukti saya membunuh, mau gini-gini katanya. Udah, datang bapak itu pengomongan nggak bagus lah, binatang kau begitu kan, baru ditangkap. Udah ditangkap polisi, dia pun nggak mengaku. Begitulah.
As the police interrogation intensifies, Suradji slowly confesses, not just to one, but to a series of gruesome murders dating back to more than a decade. Beginning in 1986, the total body count is 9 at first, then 13, 18, 23, until finally Suradji settles on a tally of 42 victims over a period of 11 years.
Ya, namanya kita manusia, ada kelebihannya, ada kekurangannya. Kalau saya ingat saya itu ya 42 gitu. Kan catatnya itu memang nggak ada. Saya pun ya lah gitu ya, saya kabar gitu. Jadi gimana bang ya, gimana lah ya. Kalaupun nanti jumpa tahu kita ya mau berbuat ya gitu.
It's an incredible confession. The investigation team summons bulldozers to dig up the sugarcane field that lies not far from Suradji's home. Shockingly, Suradji's extraordinary claims turn out to be true.
Di hasil pengamatan saya, dari mulai pertama pengkorekan sampai akhir, ya, itu memakan waktu kan cukup banyak. Begitu mengarahkan petugas, baik kepolisian, TNI, Pemkab yang sini serang, itu sempat di stop. Kenapa? Ya, banyak yang sudah tidak dikenal identitasnya. Di perkiraan saya, yang dibunuh ini cukup banyak, lebih dari 42.
The investigation team discovers a jumbled mass of bones and skulls. Sent to the forensic lab in Medan, the experts are only able to conclude that there are 42 victims, all women, aged between 17 and 40. In a case that is packed with drama and intrigue, police adjust the charge of the single murder of Sri Kamala Devi to 42 murders. Ahmad Suradji, also known as Dukun AS, appears for his trial in December 1997.
Lantar masih di mata ibu aja tuh anak ibu. Masih dalam pandangan nggak ada lupanya belum. Kayak mana dia tuh keadaannya di tengah hutan.
But behind Suradji's gruesome killings is a motive that would stun the whole nation. Indonesia's Ahmad Suradji, a much-revered sorcerer, confessed in police custody to brutally murdering a total of 42 young women and burying them all in a sugarcane field. During a rigorous interrogation that lasted 4 days, Suradji revealed the stomach-churning details of his murders. He was made to reenact his method during a process of police reconstruction of murders at the crime scene. As Indonesians looked on, stunned and stupefied, Suradji revealed his baffling technique. The task he had set out to accomplish in order to become invincible was to kill young women, all for a peculiar potion, the saliva of his dying victims. So after strangling his victims, he quickly sucked their saliva.
He believed that if he wants to get his powerful, he must kill 70 women. It's a twisted belief, and he must swallow the saliva from his victim.
Suradji's bizarre and disturbing practice was rooted in his belief in the paranormal. For many Indonesians, there is a belief that everyday life is governed by unseen forces controlled by sorcerers like Suradji, known as dukuns. A dukun's role is that of a medicine man, witch doctor, priest, mystic, poet, and master of ceremonies, rites, and rituals. Psychologist Irna Manoli reaffirms the strong belief people have in the power of sorcerers and their use of extrasensory perception to navigate the supernatural world of ghosts and spirits.
There are 3 kinds of extrasensory perception. That is telepathy, which we can read the other people's mind, and maybe we can transfer our mind to other people. And the second one is telekinetics. Maybe when he moves the clouds to prevent the rain. And clairvoyance, if you can forecast, you can make a fortune teller about other people.
Among the residents of the Sumatran village of Amandamai, Ahmad Suradji was the most respected and sought-after sorcerer. Known to villagers as Datuk, a title bestowed on men of authority, or Dukun AS, Dukun meaning a spiritual curer, he was respected for his healing powers.
I heard that he can move the cloud to prevent the rain, and I think it is a kind of telekinesis.
According to Joko Supriyono, who directed a movie on the life of Suradji, People expect sorcerers like Ahmad Suradji to solve their problems.
Kalau kau mau lebih laris lagi, ada cara yang lebih paten.
Dia bisa pergi ke dukun untuk menyelesaikan berbagai masalahnya, baik masalah ekonomi, masalah rumah tangga, masalah fisik, dalam arti kecantikan, kegantengan.
The movie titled Dukun AS not only traces the life of sorcerer Ahmad Suradji, but also features original extracts from an audio interview that Joko recorded with the criminal immediately after his arrest.
Sepanjang saya bertemu dengan dia adalah orang yang sangat normal. Dia menyadari semua perbuatannya dan dia tahu risiko yang bakal dia tanggung. Dia pernah bilang bahwa dia melakukan pembunuhan itu dan dia sadar suatu saat dia akan ketahuan melakukan hal tersebut.
Ahmad Suradji was born on December 12, 1952 to Javanese parents. His mother was a housewife. His father was a subsistence farmer and a practicing sorcerer. Nasib, meaning fate in Javanese, had a troubled childhood, which was anything but normal. Even as a young boy, Suradji dabbled in petty crime.
Dari tahun 62 saya di kampung sini. Dari mulai dia termasuk abangan saya lah kan, main-main sama. Memang dia dari mulai dia menjelang dewasa udah jahat. Istilahnya tukang ambil-ambil, mencuri-mencuri gitulah. Terus jahat aja, dia berantem-berantaman biasalah.
After a rebellious and uneasy childhood, he ran away from home. By the age of 19, he was jailed for 10 years for theft and violent behavior. Soon after this release, at 31 years, he did time again for cattle theft. After coming out of jail for the second time, he became restless and ventured into the jungles of North Sumatra and began to practice sorcery. After his return from the jungles, Suradji led a seemingly unremarkable farmer's life with his 3 wives, who were siblings, and with whom he had 9 children. As a Muslim, Suradji was allowed to have 3 wives, but it was blasphemous that he married siblings, something his 79-year-old mother, Sartik, opposes to this day.
Udah tua aja bandel.
Bandelnya apa?
Ya, aku bilang, Mama nggak ngelarang kau mau kawin 2, 3, 4, 5, aku rela, tapi orang lain. Jangan serumpun gubuk bambu diborong semua. Dia yang orang Islam kok kayak gitu. Cukup 3 kali lah, 3 kali nggak nurut ya.
3 kali nggak nurut.
During his 30s, Suradji offered his services as a sorcerer to help his neighbors. Word soon spread about his healing powers, and he began to have a steady stream of visitors that included local businessmen and government agents. But it was in the year 1986 that something mysterious happened and changed Suradji's life forever. In an almost ghostly apparition, Suradji remembered what his father told him when he was just 10 years old. Drink the saliva of dead young women to attain invincibility. 70 women his father had instructed. And struck by this recall, Suradji began his mindless killing spree.
Ingin tahu
akhirnya ya kan lama-lama ambil inisiatif PR sendiri gitu, bunuh gitu. Itulah kenyataan sampai sekarang dari mulai tahun 86 sekarang jumlahnya.
For 11 years, from 1986, Suradji would ensnare and strangle 42 young women and bury them in a sugarcane field, with the murders going unnoticed until one day in April 1997.
In the next So You Think You Can Dance. Brought to you by Clips. Get close, get fresh.
In a landmark case that shook the nation, the much-revered Indonesian sorcerer Ahmad Suradji was arrested on April 27, 1997, and charged with the murders of 42 young women. The case brought national media attention. Believed to be a healer and a curer, Suradji committed some of the most heinous crimes of all time.
A lot of women want to get help from Ahmad Suradji and they obey. They follow what he said, even though it is illogical.
Women frequently visited Suradji for counsel and for help with romantic issues. They particularly sought to cast spells to ensure that their spouses didn't cheat on them. The women were too embarrassed to tell their families of the visits. So when they vanished, no one connected their disappearances to Suradji.
Klien dia kebanyakan perempuan dan berprofesi macam-macam. Pekerja seks yang ingin banyak langganannya, ada istri yang sedang berselisih dengan suaminya. Mereka semua datang untuk mencari jalan pintas dari masalah-masalah yang mereka hadapi, dan mereka percaya Ahmad Suradji mampu untuk membantu mereka dengan cara yang cepat.
Jangan coba-coba kau langgar.
The movie Dukun AS, inspired by Suradji's murderous spree, features his brutality in great detail. Suradji's method of murder was always the same. When women visited him, he would evaluate their spiritual needs and charge them. After he was paid, they would follow Suradji to a sugarcane field, where he claimed he had to bury them up to their waists in an already dug hole as part of a ritual. Complying with their revered Dukun ultimately cost them their lives.
Dia melakukan pembunuhan kepada setiap perempuan itu dengan cara dicekek.
After strangling, he would twist their necks to suck their saliva.
Dia dibantu dengan istrinya, salah seorang istrinya. Kemudian korbannya ini semua pakaiannya ditanggalkan.
After taking their clothes off, Suradji would then bury them with their heads facing his home, so their spirits would have a direct path to him.
Ritual di ladang tebu itu sebenarnya hanya kedok belaka, karena yang dibutuhkannya adalah air liur korban. Dukun yakin air liur dari 70 wanita yang mati berhasiat untuk pengobatan segala jenis penyakit.
By swallowing the victim's saliva, Suradji was hoping to incorporate their power into himself to become invincible, just as his father ordained.
Di rekonstruksi terungkap bahwa para korban sepenuhnya percaya kepada dukun Nasib, hingga mereka ikut membantu mempermudah pekerjaan dukun menggali lubang untuk mereka sendiri. Misalnya menerangi tanah dengan lampu sorot milik dukun.
Apa katanya? Biar mama duluan. Nah, biar mama duluan. Sana jauh. Kamu suruh atau kamu antar ke sana? Saya antar. Oke, ayo antar. Di sini ya. Dua-dua Pak. Nah, ada itu gimana?
Sometimes, if paying customers were in short supply, Suradji would hire sex workers to take part in the rituals and kill them instead. With little family to look for them, if they went missing, sex workers were low-risk targets. and it would help him meet his goal of 70 victims that much faster. Suradji's mindless killing spree that lasted 11 long years came to a halt in April 1997 with the discovery of the decomposing body of 21-year-old Kamala Devi. It was the only murder where an eyewitness account could trace the last movements of the victim directly to Suradji's house. Devi had hoped that Suradji would help her get back with her estranged husband. In a recorded interview, immediately following the police investigation, Suradji explained the sequence of this last murder.
Jalan ke belakang itu tadi kebun lewati kuburan. Di situ Maladu ini kan takut. Jadi dia bilang nggak apa-apa itu, yang bilang nggak takut apa. Dari dua aja ngantar si istri tadi lah yang ngajak istri saya. Disitulah baru tahu kalau saya itu mau istri saya tadi.
Even as he planned to strangle her, Suradji kept reassuring Devi that her wish would come true.
Tak apa, Devi. Tenang saja kau. Niat kau pasti tercapai, Dewi. Teruskan. Pejamkan mata kau.
After strangling Devi and sucking her saliva, as he did with his other victims, Suradji took her clothes off before burying her. Later, a mysterious-looking mound was discovered by Sugito's nephew. The discovery led to a few other villagers approaching the field and starting to dig.
Sampai debu kena kami 5 orang, udah sore, jam-jam 6 lewat lah kan gitu. Sampai kuburan ditegur sama si Datuk ini, Ahmad Suradji. Ada apa katanya? Ada hantu. Hantu kok takut? Ayo kita ke sana kan gitu. Sampai sana, jumpa kawan itu satu lagi. Jadi dari 6 orang lah kami.
Sugito recounts the day he walked into the fields after a tip-off from his nephew.
Kalau nggak jauh, nggak jarang nih nampak jauh dia. Nah, di sinilah Pak tempatnya. Lokasi Kamala Devi di sini Pak.
What seemed to be just one corpse turned out to be a mass grave where 42 women lay buried.
Cuman dia berdekatan karena si Kamala Devi dengan mayat yang satu lubang 2 itu berdekatan sekitar 4 meter, 5 meter gitu aja. Yang dibegok sebelahnya kanannya itulah. Itu sekitar 18 orang lah daerah sini ya, termasuk Kamala Devi. Yang kami tandai dari sini 1 juring, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ini ditemukan mayat lah Pak Sata. Dalam gang itu sana ada mayat 2. Nah itu, apa namanya? Yang ke-10, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nah inilah gang si Kamala Devi.
Proses pembongkarannya itu lama. Dari sore sampai subuh besoknya. Ya perasaan macam mimpi. Perasaan ini bukan dia gitu, walaupun itu dia, karena masih ada rasa shock gitu kan, trauma juga ya.
Reporting for Vaspada newspaper, Ismanto Ismail recalls that it was an intensive search spanning several days.
Setelah kami butuh terus-terus secara berlarut, ya, bahkan kami juga tidak kenal istilah pulang. Karena itu nggak kenal. Bahkan kami liput sampai pagi, sampai dini hari terus main terus. Ya. Ternyata kami lebih menarik lagi untuk mencari mayat itu sempat menurunkan paranormal dari Jawa. Ternyata ini cukup ramai. Bahkan di sini sudah ibarat macam pasar malam. Nah, kalau masalah koran atau media cukup ramai. Baik dari asing pun ada turun.
Since it was getting difficult for the investigation team to find all 42 bodies, they summoned bulldozers to hasten the excavation process. But forensic expert Alfred Satio recalls that it was all bones and skulls that were discovered, making any identification impossible.
Only one body was Devi Kusuma, because that just happened 2 or 3 days before that. And the family is looking for her, so that match. And then we have now also bodies, 4 bodies. The families came there, but they cannot recognize exactly whether it's true or not, because it's already decomposed. Yeah, you cannot see, maybe swollen already. So there are 4 other bodies. But no any family claim that as their real family. And the rest is all bones, all skulls of bones. And so far we cannot recognize as a real victim of their family.
The forensic team established that the victims were all females, aged 17 to 40. But they were unable to ascertain if any sexual assault had taken place.
We cannot find it exactly if rape happened, but the skull that can tell you a lot about the sex of the victim, about the age of the victim, and sometimes if they have the teeth, maybe what their job is. Maybe for people they like to electrician, maybe they around the teeth. You can see from that about 85% and 90% can have that. We need other findings like DNA, but at that time we cannot practice DNA because we don't have the proper sample.
With the enraged villagers of Aman Damai clamoring for justice, Ahmad Suradji was set to face trial in December 1997. On December 11th, 1997, 45-year-old Ahmad Suradji faced a team of irate prosecutors seeking the death penalty for his cold-blooded murders of 42 young women. Suradji's lawyer recalls that many legal advisors were hesitant to take up the case.
Ada yang lihat karena dia melakukan pembantaian sampai korbannya 42 orang perempuan, itu dia secara a priori menuduh itu orang yang sudah nggak baik, kan gitu. Jadi secara hukum, di dalam hukum kita itu wajib dia didampingi oleh seorang atau beberapa orang penasihat hukum di dalam proses.
I was at the trial, but I cannot say who the victim is. I can just tell this is a lady, the age maybe between 20 until 34, and only that, because I cannot explicit telling the name of the victim. The other colleagues give also the same answer.
Since the victims could not be identified, the prosecution team had a hard time gathering evidence against Suradji. Although he confessed to the crimes during police investigation, during the trial, he retracted his statement and denied it all.
begitu emang beratnya ya polisi. Karena apa? Karena emang unsur materi hukumnya itu bukti-buktinya sangat minim ya kan, sangat sedikit. Orang yang semua udah tinggal kerangka semua.
It took 7 long months to gather all evidence and line up witnesses. It may have been tough to charge Suradji legally, but Kusbianto feels that social opinion was influencing the judicial process.
Dari aspek peristiwa itu, orang kan menuduhkan ya, apalagi pihak-pihak orang-orang perempuan ya, wanita-wanita itu udah sangat membenci sekali kepada si dukun AS ini, karena dia ini pembantai perempuan gitu kan, sadis kan gitu ya, tidak ada peri kemanusiaan begitu. Jadi jalannya persidangan tuh lebih banyak dipengaruhi oleh opini sosial ya, sosiologi hukumnya lah ya, opini masyarakat.
Suradji's wives were also arrested in connection with the case and interrogated to establish the motives as well as their involvement in the crimes. His wives had a vital role in the process of planning and preparation leading up to the ritual murders.
Kalau umpamanya keterlibat istrinya itu, tapi kalau umpamanya untuk membunuh itu tidak, cuma dia ikut melayani si calon korbannya. Melayani yang mengiring si korbannya ini ke lokasi, ya istrinya, istri pertama. Istri kedua cuma menyaksikan pertemuannya di rumahnya. Istri ketiga juga menyaksikan.
The most important role of his wife is to spread the information that their husband is a great man, has magical power, and to persuade other people to use their husband's service.
While Suradji himself claimed he was seeking magical powers, villagers believed he was only after money and sex.
The motive is maybe sex and materials, and his wife keeps secret about that.
The forensic experts were unable to establish any sexual foul play, and Suradji, in his interview, denied that his murders were sexually motivated.
Yang diambil dari wanita itu baju-bajunya, ada perhiasan, ada acara, Bapak juga memperkosa wanita, tidak pernah.
Journalist Ismanto Ismail met Suradji at Medan Police Station in 1997. Suradji had admitted to him that murder was an easy way of making money.
Mas, saya tanya, kenapa gitu kau lakukan? Macam mana bang? Saya ingin mendapat uang. Saya merampok di jalan, melakukan kejahatan di jalan. Dia bilang nanti bisa kena tembak. Saya sudah pernah menjalani hukuman berulang kali. Kasus perampokan, pencurian ternak, bahkan pembongkaran rumah pun pernah. Nah, begitu dengan cara begini, enak banget ya. Orang datang, saya bunuh, saya ambil uangnya.
Menurut saya, dia adalah seorang dukun kampung yang berusaha mempertahankan eksistensinya. Seorang yang berusaha merebut banyak pasien untuk datang kepadanya. Dia orang yang mempunyai 3 istri dan 9 orang anak. Artinya, dia harus memberi mereka makan untuk bisa survive.
What made the case even more riveting was the fact that nearly 80 villagers reported missing family members at the local Medan police station, thus raising a question if Suradji had murdered more than 42 women, or if the investigation team had done the right thing to stop digging after discovering 42 bodies.
Di perkiraan saya, yang dibunuh ini cukup banyak, lebih dari 42. Karena kan pengkorekan itu dia memakan waktu, begitu merupakan petugas, cukup banyak. Jadi putuskan sampai di situlah.
The The local media covering the story was intent on proving that Suradji was no sorcerer. If he had any magical powers, they wondered, he should have escaped from prison by becoming invisible soon after his arrest. But Suradji himself, during the trial, seemed to have accepted his fate, just as the meaning of his childhood name, Nasib, suggests.
Kalau saya secara mengikuti jalannya persidangan, dia itu semacam sudah pasrah gitu, menyerahkan bahwa dia ini melakukan perbuatan itu, merasa itu perbuatan salah, begitu kan.
Amidst a huge public outcry over his atrocious crimes, on 5. April 1998 marked the culmination point in the criminal case of Ahmad Suradji, one of Indonesia's most dangerous serial killers. Seemingly unfazed and totally guiltless during the trial, experts said that he exhibited a lack of conscience and seemed impassive throughout the proceedings.
My assessment for this case, I make a hypothesis that Ahmad Suradji is a man with antisocial personality disorder, or well known as psychopath. Ahmad Suradji committed homicide in compos mentis. It means he did it in fully awareness. It means he is not an insane. Even though a lot of people who learn about surrogacy, they become an insane people. But in my opinion, he did it in fully awareness because of his belief to get a powerful magic.
Actor Wawan Vanisur, who played Ahmad Suradji in the movie Dukun Ayes, also believes that the criminal was fully aware of what he was doing.
Kalau saya bilang dia luar biasa punya strategi untuk membuat alibi. Jadi bukan dari hal-hal psikologis gitu ya. Dia enggak, kalau saya pikir. Dia enggak. Dia cuma hebat membuat alibi. Merencanakan ingin melakukan perbuatan yang jahat, tapi dia rangkum, dia sesempurna mungkin gitu, sehingga 11 tahun loh. 11 tahun baru terbongkar, itu luar biasa.
On April 27th, 1998, following a 4-month trial, Ahmad Suradji was convicted for his cold-blooded killings of 42 women and sentenced to death.
Dari berbagai keterangan saksi maupun hasil pemeriksaan lainnya, majelis hakim menyatakan tak ada unsur yang dapat meringankan hukuman bagi terdakwa. Ahmad Suradji dinyatakan secara syah melanggar pasal 340 KUHP. Disambut ratusan pengunjung, dukun Ahmad Suradji hadir di pengadilan dan mengikuti pembacaan vonis hakim dengan wajah yang tenang.
Following the verdict, Suradji supposedly lamented to reporters that he could not reach his goal of 70 murders.
Selain dijatuhi vonis mati, terpidana Ahmad Suradji juga diwajibkan membayar ongkos perkara Rp7.500.
Convicted with him was his first wife, Tumini, for aiding and abetting Suradji in the murders, and also sentenced to death. Tumini's sentence was later commuted to life in prison, a verdict that one person is unhappy with to this day.
Mungkin pun nggak tahu lah apa yang jadi, nggak tahu itu gitu aja. Dan termasih di mata ibu aja tuh, anak ibu masih dengan pandangan nggak ada lupanya, dirian di tengah-tengah kebun-kebun kayak gitu tuh, dibawa ke situ bahkan sama bini yang bantu. Kayak mana sakit dia ngerasakan di sana itu. Tolong pun ada orang yang tahu kok tega kayak gitu. Kayak gitu pun istrinya nggak dibunuh sekalian. Masa katanya cuma dihukum seumur hidup. Sekarang minta dibebaskan, nggak tahu saya di sini ya kan. Seharusnya istrinya ikut sama, kerjasama, bukan satu yang dibunuh, banyak. Ya sama-sama dibunuh, kenapa?
During the trial, the villagers of Amandamai, in an act of protest and anger over Suradji's cruel acts, ransacked and tore down his house.
Ini kandang kambing milik dukun AS yang masih tersisa. Pada saat itu di bawah kandang kambing ini ditemukan barang bukti berupa jam-jam tangan korban sebanyak 20 unit. Kalau nggak salah, udah gitu masuk pakaian-pakaiannya di sini. Sementara rumah dukun AS hanya tersisa kamar mandinya. Inilah kamar mandinya rumah dukun AS di posisi belakang. Sementara rumahnya dulu itu setengah papan, setengah tepas, dan atapnya atap rumbia. Jadi pada saat itu rumahnya udah diratakan, diamuk massa. Jadi yang sisa hanya bangunan beton ini aja.
July 10, 2008, nearly 10 years after the sentence was given, Ahmad Suradji was executed by a firing squad, shot in the chest, dying 3 minutes later.
Jenazah dukun AS atau Ahmad Suradji semalam dibawa ke RSUD Deli Serdang setelah dieksekusi tim polisi dari Brimob.
After an autopsy to confirm his death, Suradji's body was taken to his hometown for burial. But even in death, Suradji could not escape drama.
Yang perkara sekali ya memang yang pertama kali dari keluarga Dewi lah, kami lah. Ya memang nggak ngasih lah gitu. Jadi ya kalau bisa ya jangan.
Dari rumah sakit.
Jadi untuk apalah dia ditaruh di sini?
Ditembak mati akibat melakukan.
As the police vehicle carrying Suradji's body reached Amandamai, the people blocked it and refused to allow the burial to take place in the village. To Davy's mother, burying the multiple murderer in the same village as her daughter was a hideous insult.
Gini aja bilang, kuburan anakku aja kalian korek. Masukkan dia ke dalam situ, jadi pembunuh sama yang dibunuh bersatu. Nggak payah-payah, sama-sama kami jarahin.
Following the controversy, Suradji's body had to be shifted to a graveyard in another hamlet 50 kilometers away in Deli Serdang for burial.
Pertama, itu rencana mau dikubur di dekat rumah orang tuanya. Namun di sana mendapat protes keras oleh masyarakat. Dan gitu mau dikuburkan di lokasi tempat yang lain yang juga di kuburan muslim juga diprotes. Alhasil dilakukan di sini. Inilah yang saya lihat kuburan Ahmad Suradji. Karena waktu pengkorekan itu saya sempat juga lihat melakukan penguburan. Ini daerahnya.
The burial on July 11th, 2008 may have marked the end of an era of atrocities of one of the worst, most prolific and dangerous serial killers ever. But Ahmad Suradji, the witch doctor, the sorcerer from hell, managed to leave many hard-to-heal wounds.
Kan si anak ini yang kasihan. Asal ada orang gini gitu, ya itulah dia kan sedih. Waktu itu umurnya masih 2 tahun 2 bulan itu mamanya meninggal. Jadi dia kan tahu ibunya ini cuma di fotonya aja kan gitu.
Kangen aja sama mama. sedih lah, kok tega. Marlan satu kawan sama Uwe juga, dukun AS-nya. Gak bisa-bisanya mama saya yang dibunuh.
Namanya anak, kayaknya dia tuh mau pulang itu. Gak bisa lupa ibu. Setiap hari dia ninggalkan rumah lah. Setiap bulan 4 ibu udah gak karu-karuan. Seolah-olah ibu menunggu dia. Dia mau pulang gitu. Perasaan ibu dia tuh masih merantau aja gitu. Bakalan pulang lah dia gitu kalau harapan ibu. Kayaknya gak bisa rela ngadepi kenyataan.